Hi everyone. I'm here today with the Terra team, and that is Sheena Khan, who's Head of Environment and Culture Programs, Education and Culture at the Terra Pavilion, Expo City Dubai, and also Phil Dunn, who's the Senior Manager of Sustainability there as well. Hi, thanks both of you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
I was going to say, everyone, I think, will know about Terra Building and Expo 2020. It's just such a striking part of the Expo. So could you just tell us a little bit about the handover of the building and what the plans were for the next phase when you took it on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Terra was built as the Sustainability Pavilion for the mega event that was Expo 2020 Dubai. And as you mentioned, of course, Terra was always designed to be part of what is now the thriving city, which is Expo City Dubai, that you see here. Actually, that you see right behind us is Terra's giant canopy. So when the building was completed, just in time for us to open our doors to the world, and we hosted over 1 million visitors through Terra during those 6 months, we always thought of our operations in 2 phases. So we knew that it was mega event, or what we called it as event time operations of the building, huge amounts of visitors, small, shorter dwell times, to what we called legacy mode, which is what we see now here, which is sort of longer dwell times and lower visitors, more in line with what you would see at the typical, the similar sort of benchmark attractions, such as museums and art galleries and so on. So that also had an implication for our operations and, of course, our environmental footprint.
Yep. Yeah. Just to build off what Sheena said, I think one of the most important things about Expo 2020 transitioning from the event into legacy is that often when you have these mega events, the site has to see millions of people a day. And it's not really scaled to human scale. It's scaled on this mega scale. And afterwards, it's really hard to adapt those sites back into the urban fabric of a city. In our case, it was almost like Expo City was built and then it was rented out to the Expo 2020 event for those 6 months. So it was very easy to come back in. And Terra being one of the key buildings within that event, Expo 2020, has transitioned into this flagship building for Expo City Dubai. Terra was built as the Sustainability Pavilion at the time. And so it was built, if you could imagine something that should be in a sustainable building, it was put into Terra. So we're very privileged to have inherited this electric Ferrari of a building. And one of the biggest challenges was then to figure out how to drive this Ferrari as a high performance vehicle and not like a bicycle. And so inheriting this building, there was a lot of challenges, and I'm sure everyone can kind of understand in the rush for a mega event, there are a lot of things that perhaps weren't commissioned as they should. And so to recommission the building and to re-establish that baseline of how to operate the building sustainably was one of our main challenges. So, like I said, we have all of these amazing things. We have a huge amount of solar panels, all the things we'll get into that is sustainable in the building, but to operate it sustainably was really a key challenge for us.
So you mentioned humility in your entry for the awards. I thought that was really, really interesting. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you realized that Terra was not going to meet its environmental targets?
Well, I can't talk about humility because I feel like we're the best. So
Okay. So from I guess day one during event time, but also when we reopened, which was a few months after we finished for Expo 2020, we've always had a dashboard, which helped us to monitor our building's energy performance. Of course, we can talk about water and waste as well, but in particular, I think for today, what we wanted to focus on was what we were seeing when it came to our energy. So the building was designed sort of with 2 aspects in mind. So first and foremost, you got to keep in mind that Dubai is not just an arid city, it's super arid. So very hot summers, very, very humid, but not to the extent that it's able to sort of capture water very efficiently from the air. And so the large environmental footprints of buildings in the UAE are predominantly from carbon emissions of the operations of the buildings because of that huge air conditioning footprint that you require, especially to operate throughout the summer. I'm going to stop for just a second. And, as a blooloop, we understand our operational context, right? We always got to think about our visitors. So we operate 365 days a year, 7 days a week. We're open from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. And on weekdays, actually, many times we open at 9 a.m. to accommodate school groups because, our visitors are critical to us. So what we did from sort of the design of the building in the very first place was sunk the building down underground. So from a passive design perspective, so before we even thought about renewables, sank the building down underground so we could make use of the thermal mass. We put this beautiful canopy up over above the pavilion, inspired by our neighboring country, Yemen's dragon's blood tree, an island off the coast of Yemen called Socotra, which Phil and I actually visited earlier this year. It's extremely remote to get to, but incredible experience. So it's an endemic regional species that inspired Terra's canopy. So it provided shading. It was reimagined as one of the original, if you think of Bargil, so the wind towers that you traditionally see in Middle Eastern architecture. Let's say our canopy is a reimagined Bargil for today's day and age. So it basically funnels cool air in, lets the hot air rise up and out. It's oriented just so that it's about almost 10 degrees cooler with the shading and with its orientation for the canopy. And then all around our building, we have 18 E-trees or energy trees. So they rotate throughout the day to face the sun like sunflowers. So on one side, we have the passive cooling techniques, or passive design techniques. And on the other side, we have our renewable energy, which was meant to all balance out to what was net zero energy, which is measured on an annual basis. So this is where the question about humility comes in, right? So we open our doors after Expo, and we look at our dashboard, and what did we see, Phil? Were we net zero energy?
Yeah, we saw that we were not even 50% towards our net zero energy goal. So I was like, okay. And I think the important thing that Sheena's bringing up is that even though we have this amazing building, we have all these things, we needed to then admit that we weren't operating them as they should be operated. And so that was a hard thing to do. It was a decision that we made that we wouldn't go and rely on external consultants. We wouldn't rely on external entities to do this. We would try to build the capacity and the understanding of our own building and how to fix this problem ourselves.
And nor would we immediately resort to renewable energy credits, RECs, or trying to offset immediately. So first we wanted to fix the problem by seeing then how we top up or we can supplement what needs to be supplemented in the end.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Our big boss calls that true net zero. We want to be true net zero. And so in order to do that is where we come to the part in the story where we set up our lead committee.
Absolutely. And I was going to talk about how it's such an important part of the story, isn't it? And I wondered if you could share how that worked, who the members were, and kind of, it's like how you achieved what you achieved, I think, with it, what the makeup was of the committee and how it worked.
Yeah. So from the initiation of the committee, it was a cross-cutting membership that really incorporated the operations team, the education team. We had our facilities management team, which was a contractor to us. We had the community management team.
Which is the wider Expo site.
Which is the wider Expo site. So we're just a part. Terra is 24,000 square meters of building in a sea of other buildings within Expo City. And so the larger facilities management team of Expo City. And the committee, we would gather every week at the beginning, and we set out a target of being net zero waste, energy, and water. So we had 3 targets that we wanted to achieve. At the beginning, we focused on energy. So we started to focus on the energy target. And really, it was all under the guise of starting to understand where we were. So it's really hard to understand where you need to be if you don't understand where you are. And as Sheena mentioned, one of the main components was to try and understand where we were with our energy consumption. So to do that, we had to look at our meters, our BMS system, like various components of the technical part of the building, verify whether or not they're working, and get them in working order. So at least we could have this dashboard that she referred to that would give us the readings of where we were, because we don't need to know just where we are with our consumption, how much we're using electricity. But because I don't know if you can see behind us, we have this huge canopy of 8,000 square meters of solar panels behind it. So we need to know how much we are with our production as well. And so net zero, just to be clear, means the balance of how much you're using in a year of electricity, how much you're producing in a year of electricity. And at the end of the year, those two should equal zero or better. So, those were the important first steps. The team coming together, starting to measure where we were. And then based off of that, we could start to make interventions, start to make these operational changes on our consumption. So where we were using the energy. As Sheena mentioned, the biggest consumer of energy in, I think, anywhere is going to be how you condition the building. So whether it's heating or whether it's cooling, doesn't matter. And different building typologies will use different energy demands, like a art gallery that has very specific requirements for humidity control, temperature control. Like they use a lot of energy in their climate control. In Terra, about 50% of it goes to our cooling. And Sheena alluded to like lots of the passive parts of the building where it's buried underground and different things. I won't get into that. But at the end of the day, like the optimization of our chillers, we use chilled water to cool our building. The lights, the temperature that we kept the building at. Our exhibitions are the next big load that we have from electricity standpoint. So optimizing our equipment, looking at high value pieces of equipment that were going out of date and that needed to be replaced, and thinking of the new technologies and how to replace them. Those sorts of things all combined together, all added together to reduce our energy amount by 38%.
Wow.
And then, additional changes just in the operations. So I think I touched on adjusting the temperature to 24 degrees. I know it seems like such an easy thing, but like in different parts of the world, specifically in Dubai, we have so many different cultures here, and there's so many different ways people are dressing, and men and women and ages and all sorts of things lead to personal preference for temperature. So setting the temperature for 24 degrees, if there's any facility managers out there listening, they're going to know how difficult of a challenge it is to do something like that and to satisfy all these different requirements for comfort.
And can I just add to that? It becomes a bit of a running joke that if you come into Terra, and a lot of times in the UAE, you walk into a building and it's very cold, and so a lot of times, and like you said, the men will wear suits or national dress, and a woman will come along with a cardigan if not already a national dress, or just another layer. So it became a running joke that when you come into Terra, it's like, oh, it's actually an okay building. And then sometimes people will find it a bit hot. And we're like, we're a net zero building. And when you start off with that, it sort of it gives a baseline, or it gives context to how you feel, which actually adds to our brand. It adds to our authenticity. It adds to every single person in the building caring. And I think that was an important part of having this cross-functional net zero committee, and that everyone could speak to their teams if someone had a complaint about the temperature, or if they felt better about it, or just communication is such a big component of change management, that because we were able to communicate out as the changes were happening, it made a huge difference. And it wasn't just the people on the committee, it was the people who were reported up to report it into them. And it was the people who above them that were more senior. And so they were able to then, communicate up and down, as well as across the organization of all these changes that we were making. And that really helped with the support that we needed to be able to do it. Because at the end of the day, net zero isn't about the people sat around the room, although they did all the hard work, to be fair. It was about, everyone's buy-in.
Yeah. And to build off what Sheena said, there's the energy savings part, there's getting all the stakeholders involved. And then there's the production, so the solar production. So we went through, and now we can tell how much we're producing because of the dashboard that I was talking about earlier, with the sensors that we, in the previous part of the committee, had established to make sure they're working. And now we can maximize our solar production, which then further starts to help with the balancing of the net zero equation. And then on top of all of that, there's the education team. So we have a very strong education team. And Terra is about environmental education. It's based off the 9 planetary boundaries of the Stockholm Resilience Center. And so that's what we do. We talk about sustainability, and net zero is part of what we talk about. So moving forward with the education team, educating our back of house employees and our front of house employees, all of these things added together. So it's really this layering approach of all the things.
Yes, and hugely sort of holistic, isn't it? I think I was really interested, particularly in the makeup, when we talked about the makeup of the committee and the buy-in, like you say, up and down, and making sure you represent all stakeholders. I guess to get those ideas coming, but also to kind of communicate out as well and learn is super important, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. So now you've done this amazing work on your own sort of energy and water and everything. And I was really interested then that you've decided to open up pretty much the whole building, and you've done some really interesting initiatives in terms of teaching and learning. So I don't know if you want to sort of talk about those as well. I think we'd talked about the zero energy consultant and the kind of behind the scenes tours that you do as well.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Well, I'll just say one, for 1 minute, I'll just say one of the things that often happens is everybody gets to see the front of house, like all the shiny exhibits and all the amazing parts, but they don't get to see behind the scenes all the hard work that's going on to make things work. And sometimes sustainability isn't visible. It's happening, as I said, behind the scenes, and it's a bit hidden. So, Sheena.
So, So because education was invited to the table, the literal meetings. As we were going, the question was always, okay, how can we create a circle of learning, but then being transparent? Because that's also part of our brand values and part of who we are at Terra, and being transparent about what we're not great at, but also opening of what has, being transparent about what's worked for us. So we had this really great opportunity that Expo City Dubai was hosting COP28 at the end. My goodness, I can't believe it's been a year ago now. But at the end of 2023, of course, which is the Conference of the Parties, the UN FCC climate treaty, where governments came together to discuss and agree on what their carbon targets would be going forward, and all of the associated policy around that. So we thought this is an excellent opportunity for us to talk about the role that the built environment can play in reducing our carbon footprint. What educational tools can we roll out based on our learnings? Not everybody wants to learn. I mean, we've heard a lot about set your thermostat to 24 degrees in the UAE, but how can we go further? How can we go beyond that? And so we came down to two ideas that we thought would be really cool, and we rolled them out. So the first one was a workshop for high school students and university students, which was our net zero energy consultant for a day workshop. So we designed a program where we actually had to double the length of time of our usual programs to fit in all of the content. So students come in, and within this module, they do three things. They go on a scavenger hunt. So we've got these amazing exhibits that we'll have lots of pictures on that we'll share with you. And they search for clues, and they'll be able to do some research in our exhibits about what the footprints of buildings are, and what passive cooling is, what renewable energy strategies are. Then they get to go behind the scenes and actually see in our building management system room. They get to see what it looks like, what our systems look like, and where they get to go to the places that our engineers would go. And then the last thing is they get to look at the data. So we produced a series of charts and graphs on both our consumption and our production across several days throughout the year. And they actually have to identify and use then a critical thinking, apply what they've learned to figuring out, okay, well, why weren't we producing a lot of energy on that day? Hang on. There was a sandstorm that day. Okay, so it's not just about the rise and the fall of the sun throughout the day that helps with our renewable energy production. It's also about the adverse weather conditions. Okay, when do we need to trigger a cleaning of our PV panels and so on? So it was a really great opportunity for students to really come in, roll up their sleeves, and see and actually participate in a real life hands-on experience of what our lead net zero committee had actually done throughout throughout the previous months. So that was the first, and we actually rolled it out as one of we launched it during COP28, and then we included it as one of our school offerings. So one of our products is a field trip educational offering. Expo City Dubai, Terra is part of a group of education and culture about pavilions that together we offer a really amazing, it's called the Expo Education Program. So it's a suite of field trip venue options across different themes and curricula for students. So we really built some value for the organization by being able to share what we learned. The other thing we did was we developed out, and our ops team nearly wanted to kill us at the beginning, but we can say this because our ops team isn't with us right now. Yeah, I know, right? I don't know. Rosa. They allowed us to access and turn our back of house areas into visitor accessible places. So I gave the example of where the students would go. So we did that around energy, but we also did it with our waste room. Can you imagine a venue opening your waste room to visitors? As well as our water systems. And our comms team came together with us and helped us come up with some really great infographics for walls to explain a lot of the content that we just spoke to you guys about just now. And you can actually see where the sort of the fresh air handling units are, where you can see where the air comes in, where it goes out. You can see examples of solar panels. You can see our inverter room. You can understand how our solar panels have the energy has to be converted from AC to DC or DC to AC. I always confused.
DC to AC.
Thank you. So all of these things, sort of live feeds, really, really engaging and interactive. In our waste room, we have our vermicomposting. So you actually get to see worms breaking down our food waste. And you can see the various pieces of equipment that help us achieve the targets and goals. And so that we call it our Net Zero Behind the Scenes tour. So that was also rolled out during COP28, and then now we offer it as one of our products. So visiting groups of architects, engineers. It also is great for our city because we actually get to open our doors and show stakeholders that we are putting our. I guess we're walking. What is it? We're walking the walk. Yeah.
Talking the talk.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
Walking the talk. Yeah.
Walking the talk. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We're doing what we should.
And I wondered, so there are two questions around it. I think that's really amazing for people to be able to do that in practice, particularly students as well, to see kind of best practice. So I was wondering if there were any surprises when you did that, like with people's reactions to it, or what worked really well, what didn't, any kind of learnings you took from that.
I think one of my favorites was that we had just had our building design in the previous years, and then we wanted to make our sustainable building a sustainable teaching building. So where elements of the building itself inherently teach. So we're lucky enough to have Grimshaw design us, so we're an architecture building technically. And I know that word, we don't use it anymore. But we were lucky enough, but oh my goodness, we missed this opportunity to really make sustainability in terms of how our operations work in front of house. And we no longer have the budget to or to even the opportunity to redesign our buildings. So we had to be really creative. So we all got together, again, cross-functionally, because by then we were used to it. And we were like, how can we do this? And we came up with some cool ideas. So health and safety, for example, it's like, no way you can take down behind one of our exhibits, which is almost pitch black, to get to one of these rooms. And the lighting system would cost so much money. And then one of Phil's team members came up with a great idea about the lighting.
Yeah, well, just go on Amazon. We bought these little stick-on battery-powered lights that cost very little, that did a great job of illuminating.
And they turn on when you walk by. So it was super low cost.
Yeah. So lots of little innovations like Sheena's talking about that we managed to pull together to make something that had, like Sheena said, like people had some adverse reactions to bringing people into the back of our no visitors should back into their areas, and to make them accessible, make them look good, make them informative, make them function as an educational, valuable space to showcase was really challenging, but really fun. And we had a lot of fun ideas that we had to use to overcome some of these challenges to access spaces that you wouldn't normally access. Another one was, there's these fire suppression units that suck all the oxygen out of a room when a fire happens, or if a fire happens. And so, of course, people can't go into those rooms, so we have to figure out what to do. So we put in these fake cameras that look like they're actually showing inside the room of what's happening in there, and they're just still photographs of what's happening.
Nobody tells that it's not live recording. The rooms are still, nothing ever changes.
On the video. So we thought we have to install these video cameras and all these things, but they're just showing
live
feeds of what's going on. And fun, creative ways of like overcoming the challenges that you would have from a HSC perspective of getting people into these backspaces, but still bringing that value of what they offer from an educational standpoint. Of course, the challenge around like just the technical challenges of making sure that we had data that we were happy to share with people was something as well. So, like fixing all the bugs in the system as much as we could, and humility with humbleness, saying that there's things that we can improve on, and like using those as teaching moments for the people that are going through to understand that when they're going on this same journey, hopefully what we're doing is like reaching people that want to be on this same journey and sharing with them some of the hiccups along the way, and like acknowledging that, yeah, we're not doing everything perfect. We could be doing better, and help us like come up with ideas. We're open to ideas. We're open to doing things better. If you see something we're not doing better, we're more than happy to listen to people to improve our operations.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really, really cool. And I think when we talked earlier, Sheena, I think I was really surprised by how little this cost as well. And I was going to ask you about that, but also just to check. So do the tours actually generate revenue as well? Do these bring in revenue, or is that not the model?
Yeah, no, they do. We launched them free of cost during COP28, part of what was developed throughout. And now they're part of our, they do generate revenue. When we have, not always, sometimes it generates revenue and value for us when important delegations come through. So for example, if the management of the city has stakeholders, or we have citywide forums, like the Cities in Action Forum that we have coming up in February here in Expo Dubai, we have a product that we're able to, we have the capacity to roll out and offer them. So it's a combination of generating revenue, but also solidifying ourselves as, let's say, thought leaders, or at least open doors. I'm not sure if experts would be the right word. Again, trying to be humble. So through those two areas. And in terms of cost, to answer your question, we did it for a very low amount of money. It was a couple $1,000. Let's just, if we're using US, what would have been the equivalent of that, and that cost was predominantly for printing of the infographics, as we didn't have those in-house printers. Everything from the hard hats to the high-vis vests that the students wear when they do their Net Zero Energy Consultant for a Day workshop, because STEAM education, we're really getting into it and building the drama and the experience, because that's the business that we're in. We repurpose them from Expo time. One of our colleagues figured out how to use a solvent to remove the previous branding, and we were able to do everything just by upcycling, recycling. We used an old screen from a different part of our room for the screen that Phil was mentioning, and we really just sort of scrounged around to see what we could with what we had in house. So yeah, the only, I'd say, expenses were really the printing of those infographics, which were really quite lovely.
Amazing. That's really cool. I think I'm always interested in where there can be sustainable stuff that's actually makes money. Effectively, you're making a profit from doing these tours, and didn't cost a lot of money to do so. It's really interesting for people, I think. The other bit I was going to ask you about was, I think often attractions find it very difficult to talk about their green work. I think it's quite scary for them in case they people like delve into it hugely and they've done something wrong or inadvertently, or they're accused of greenwashing, and they don't want to lecture people who are coming for a good time. So I don't know if you've got any top tips about how to talk about sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Terra, and we invite everyone who's listening to please come and visit us. We would love to invite you. So the main exhibit is an immersive experience. So we actually communicate. Phil likes to say that more knowledge doesn't always equal more action, right? And so for us, it isn't about sharing knowledge. It's about having our visitors, by first connecting to nature. That's always going to be an element of what we do at Terra. Before you can come into Terra, start a Net Zero Energy workshop, you have to walk through our beautiful landscape full of native plants. It's akin to a botanical garden, right? So you have that moment, you feel the awe, you feel the wonder through our architecture and so on before we're able to get into the experience. But the idea is that for us that we really think is that if visitors can contemplate what their role in a brighter future is, then we can do then we've done our job. Because when we really see how our individual purpose connects back to the larger purpose, society, community, and how that we're actually all part of nature, we think that that's the real unlock there, as opposed to let's tell you what to do, having it be more participative, having it be more immersive, having it be more of an empowering experience. It's okay, where do I fit into this? And how do I equip myself to be part of it? And how do I want to be part of it from a purpose perspective? We think that's where the real unlock is. Do you want to add anything to that?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So that would be our advice. But hey, if love to continue the conversation. We're constantly learning ourselves. So I actually really looking forward to looking at all of the other videos that are on this to learn ourselves from what everyone else is doing.
Cool. Okay. I'm just at that point. I'll do a shameless plug that we do a sustainability conference in April online. It was May this year online, Green Loop. So anybody who's interested, please do come along to that. And talk to like-minded professionals, because we're all trying to do the same thing, I think. Not necessarily as well as you're doing it, I have to say. And so the final question, I was wondering about the future legacy for Terra. What can you share any future plans? Anything else up your sleeves?
Yes, we're so excited about the future. Phil, hit us with our goats.
Well, have you ever walked through a park and seen goats walking around? Have you ever seen goats grazing on a green roof? Have you ever seen goats walking on a leash through a city before? No, probably not. So at Terra, we're bringing pygmy goats into our landscape, and we have these beautiful green roofs that not only do they help with slowing the infiltration of stormwater, helping with the insulation of the building for cooling, they are mimicking the perennial grasslands that would have been here 130,000 years ago. And those grasslands needed herbivores to graze them. So we'll bring back goats to graze our landscape to help reduce with the carbon emissions that would be, normally emitted from machines that would be trimming the grass and the vegetation. It reduces the amount of transportation of our green waste, all these sorts of things. So it's an amazing exhibit.
Most importantly, they're super cute because they're pygmy goats. So from a visitor perspective, they're going to hopefully we're going to have like an adopted goat program where you can learn about how to take care of goats. We're also launching a pollinator garden later this year. Yep. Later this month. We're really excited about that. We've got 2 beautiful beehives. We're doing beekeeping courses. We're rolling out beekeeping courses in schools across the UAE later this year. We're supporting native plants. We're doing a lot around native plants. We're really getting big into fungi. And we can't talk about it just yet, but we'll be launching a really exciting program later this year as it relates to fungi. Nature in cities, just urban biodiversity in general, what that looks like in arid environments, as we mentioned, through nature-based solutions, through pollinators, native plants, but also through nature therapy. So how can nature help with our mental health and well-being? And all of this fits into the umbrella of what role do cultural institutions, such as everybody on this call and everyone that's part of blooloop, play in a more sustainable future? And so sort of greening the industry from the inside out, not just through the built environment, but through these incredible experiences where we enable and equip visitors to be part of that positive change is where we really see our future.
Amazing. That sounds really exciting. Not just the pygmy goats, although that is really exciting. But yeah, no, that sounds wonderful. And really, thanks for this session. Truly inspiring what you're doing. I'm really so impressive and making a huge difference as well. It's really, really nice to speak to you. Michael.
And now the winners of the 2024 blooloop Innovation Award Sustainability category. Third place, Climate Resilience Resources for Cultural Heritage from ECP and the Foundation for Advancement in Conservation. Second place, Traceless Materials. First place, Turning Superpower into Superpowers at Terra, part of Expo City, Dubai. Congratulations to all of the winners.